talk to us today about follow your heart's desire. And I'm sure many of you remember Jan. She's written a couple of books. She's written songs. She's just an amazing individual. I heard her talking earlier about, some of the things that influenced her growing up that are still there, but that unity is still very important to her, in her heart, I think, Jan, if that was what I heard correctly. So please come on in.
All right, I'm here. It's good to be back with oh my heavens, look at the sun's coming in on my head.
Isn't that lovely?
I'm illuminated. Look
yes,
I'm illuminated.
You're illuminated, and your halo is shining.
My halo is shining. I'm going to speak on desire today, which is the closest to the virtue hope. But first, I want to just go to faith for a minute, because I saw on one of the opening slides our famous line that we're spiritual but not religious. And most of you know, if you've heard me talk, that I was in the convent for a couple of years. And when I was in the postulate, the first class we ever took was a theology class, and it was taught by a priest who, it was in 1967, and there was a lot of kind of evolution going on with people kind of redefining faith. And I'm just going to say this in case anyone ever says to you, what's the difference between faith and religion? Because I wouldn't have been able to talk about that had it not been for this priest who kind of shook us out of our dogmatic Catholic belief system by saying religion, we're not going to think about religion now. We're going to only define faith for ourselves, because he said religion is like a set of doctrines or dogma that gets handed down to you, a set of beliefs that have nothing to do with your faith, because your faith is something living. It's something that you create and define for yourself, and it's actually the engine that moves you forward in your life. And so the image that I have in my mind about that distinction is that religion is like the menu, and faith is the meal. Religion is like the score, but faith is the music. So for us to be able to ever say, if somebody says, what's the difference between those two things, that might be a way for you to describe it. But today I'm here to talk about hope or desire, because in my religious upbringing, I was taught that desire was kind of a bad thing, that we're not supposed to give in to our desires. We're supposed to be these selfless creatures who think only about how can I be useful to someone else, and to not give much attention to what we want ourselves. So just like we reframe religion, we want to reframe desire or hope, because desire and hope are pretty much the same thing. And when we're little, it manifests like this time of year. You know, what does a kid want for Christmas? You know, I hope I get a pony. I hope I get a new bicycle. And that's how hope moves through us when we're young. But when we're adults, creating our own spiritual life, then hope or desire takes on a different nature. It becomes an active verb. And this morning, when I was saying my prayers and thinking about how exactly am I going to talk about this with you all, I remember that I was facilitating a general assembly for a community of nuns called the Dominicans of Hope. And I said, what do you all mean by hope? And none of them could say, right? They call themselves these conceptual names. They called themselves Dominicans of Hope. But when I asked 6 or 7 of them, give me a good definition of hope, they couldn't do it. So I made a video for them for their general assembly, and I prefaced it with these words on the screen. So I decided I'm going to read you these words because they're my way of saying what hope is. Hope is the energy that sustains a new vision while it transforms from the realm of imagination to the realm of manifest reality. Hope is a child of longing and expectation. It's desire in love with wisdom. Prayer married to thanksgiving. Hope is not a powerless waiting for, but a powerful welcoming of the future we are creating. It's an evolutionary act that involves the total engagement of our body, mind, and spirit. So when we're looking at how is it activated in us, because we know, I mean, part of the unity acknowledgement is that we are creating our own reality. William Tiller, who's a physicist, described it in this way. He said, there is a thought that comes in to our mind from the realm of spirit. Like when you sit down to do your meditation, there's thoughts that come in. So a thought is implanted in our mind. And if it has an energy that excites us, and we decide to work with that thought, then it moves down into the realm of the heart, where it meets with desire. And those forces, that desire, is like the jet fuel. Those feelings is what causes that thought to move from the realm of imagination into the realm of reality. That we have to have our feelings engaged in it and to imagine what would be like. Imagine you're planning, you get the thought it's time to take a road trip, just for an example. And then you get your atlas out, and then you imagine going, where can I go on my road trip? I'm going to go to, I just talked with someone the other day who said they're planning a road trip. They're driving here and they're going to Denver and Las Vegas on the way here. And I thought, wonder what it is about Denver and Las Vegas that gets them excited. And so they say, this is where I'm going on my map. When I plan a road trip, I'm one of 65 grandchildren. So I have so many cousins that I make my road trips. I put pins in my atlas where my cousins are. And that's what gets me excited. There's a Jesuit priest, Tony DeMello, and he said, this is about selfishness, because we're poorly trained about selfishness. And so we have to redefine it. We have to rethink these concepts. And it's in the realm of hope and desire, because we're part of our bad spiritual training is don't pay so much attention to what you're receiving, pay more attention to what you're giving. But Tony DeMello redefines it in this way. And he said, do what you want. That's not selfish. Selfish is expecting other people to do what you want. Right? I'll say it again. Do what you want. That's not selfish. Selfish is expecting other people to do what you want. And that really caused a jolt in me when I first heard it, because it was so counterintuitive. It's kind of aligns with that line in Course in Miracles that says giving is receiving. You know, we're set up in this dualistic world because that's the rules of Earth. And I think it's part of the allure why a soul decides, like we're out there in the realm of mind at large. We're out there in the cosmic unitive place when we decide, oh, I think I want to go to Earth. I want to experience duality. See if I can experience duality and not get fraught. So the soul comes down here, and I think it's the birth canal, which is the journey of forgetfulness. So we come through the birth canal and are born as little infants, and we have totally forgotten everything from our place of unitive consciousness, because we decided to have an experience of duality. And once we get here, it's like, holy crap, this sucks, right? Because all the time, the journey back home is to stay in unitive consciousness. And we all know how hard that is. It's not so hard when we're together in unity, because this is what's normal for us, because we've done the work of growing our consciousness, and we do it every day in our spiritual practice. So when we're together as a spiritual community, it's like, Yahoo! I'm with people who remember what we're here for. And we're doing it like a symphony. We all have different instruments, but we're doing it, and we know the rest of the community is doing it, rising above and creating a life by bringing together our thoughts and our desires and our feelings of joyfulness when we think about the future that we're creating. You know, there's nobody else is talking about this stuff in other churches. You're not going to get this affirmation of what you're about in a Methodist church or a Baptist church or a Catholic church. It's in unity where we become reacquainted with the essential nature of ourselves and our lives. And I'm always looking for scientific experiments that kind of illustrate where we are in our thinking. And there was this experiment quite a long time ago that involved chicks, baby chickens. And I remember as a child, I grew up very close to the Canadian border. I was born in Watertown, New York. And my family are all dairy farmers. And so my mom's one of 14 kids, and we would, on the weekends, drive to her brothers and sisters' houses and then have to drive home on the country roads. And I always remember when we're driving by, there's huge chicken farmers that have whole barns full of chickens, and the lights would be on in the dark. So I'd go, Mommy, how come the lights are on where the chickens live? And she would say, because the chickens don't like the dark. They lay more eggs if it's light. So the farmer wants the chickens to lay more eggs and to be happy. So he leaves the lights on all night. So I go, okay, I was happy with that. I never thought about it again until I saw this scientific experiment where they were watching. They had the sealed up room with a bunch of little baby chicks in the room. And they have the light on, and the chicks are all over the place, and everybody's happy. The lights are on. And then they turn the lights off. And now all the chickens are gathered together, hovering in a corner. And they send in a robot that has been programmed for random movements. And so what that means is when the robot goes into the room, it randomly moves to the right, to the left, backwards, forwards, just random movements. And so this is that robot that was set up to move randomly. But what happened when they sent it into the room, they gave it a candle. And so now how that robot moves is it spends an inordinate amount of time in the vicinity of the chicks. It no longer moved forward and backward and right and left. It moved closer to the chicks and it stayed in their vicinity. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the desire of the chicks for the light overcame the computerized programming of this robot. And that is pretty remarkable. And so imagine for us the power of our consciousness when we train it and when we apply that training to our desire, and that we cause what we are desiring to come our way into our life, like those chicks caused that robot to bring its light over to them. So the power of our hope is that. The power of our faith is a different power. When they say, what are the three virtues, faith, hope, and charity? We're pretty clear on the power of love. That's all Karen Drucker was singing about in those songs, right? We all know the power of love. Anyone who's ever been in love knows that power. I have driven through blizzards to be with the person I love. That power is huge. And the power of faith, the motor of our lives. Everything I do every day is based on my faith. And my faith, when I back up into it, is based on what I learned from my master teacher, who for me is Jesus. And now it's also because I've made a peace pilgrimage around the world and was introduced to Buddhism in Japan and also in India, and also introduced to the Tao in China, introduced to Hinduism in other things in India. But my main teacher is Jesus, because he made it so easy that the only thing we have to do to live fulfilling lives to be full of joy and to be true to what we came here to do is to be of service, to love other people, and to love whatever the relationship is between whatever now we identify as God. Because most of us in unity have redefined that sense of who God is. And so that is the image that we relate to now. And it's not so much, I bet, that it's not so much a pleading to a man in the sky, the God in the sky. We've stopped praying like, oh God, heal somebody so she doesn't die. We don't pray like that. It's like, dear Santa, please bring me a pony. Those are the old days. And who we are in unity is a community that lives in the awareness that not only are we made in the image of the creator of the cosmos, but we are creating our lives and our experience on this planet. So God's take care of the cosmos, the infinite. We take care of Earth and the finite. And that's our job. So what does hope have to do with us in the daily living of our lives? Hope is that thing that we have that informs our movement through the day. It's attached to how we are of service. Because when you really look into what are your biggest hopes, it's related to what are your biggest disappointments? What's fallen apart that you can make a contribution to, that you can, where you have some agency to make a change? And for each one of us, that's entirely different. If I were to say that this whole body here, to the whole group of us on this Zoom call, what breaks your heart? What's breaking your heart? Some of you might say what's happening to the rainforest. Some of you might say puppies, puppy mills break my heart. We have to say down here, our government's breaking our heart. Immigration, the migrants, that's breaking my heart. So as a spiritual being, how do you know what to do? You look at what's that element that causes you pain and figure out what is your agency in that regard. If it's puppy mills, then you might volunteer at the Humane Society. You might donate money. Used to be, I could go in March at every single March. And now I'm 76. I have to take my walker to the marches now. Things change. Used to be you could go and volunteer at the place, and now you're going to write a check. But it's related to what's that thing that causes sorrow in your heart? Because sometimes we're overwhelmed when there's too many things going wrong and we get off center because the media, I mean, we're exposed constantly. I don't know about your news, but our news is horrific these days. As you all know, our president is a total embarrassment and a criminal. And so the news that we're exposed to is awful. And when I was in grad school, I'm a social activist, so I'm a news maker. I want to make the news. I don't want to respond to the news, right? But they all said in grad school in photojournalism, go where the blood is. If it bleeds, it leads. Get a scanner. Follow the ambulances. And I refuse to do that because I'm not going to be one of them, because I'm creating a better world. And so for me, a while back, when I'm trying to consider what am I doing that illustrates my love for the other person? What am I actually doing? And it was like, not enough. Well, what's breaking my heart? The immigrants. I live in a border town. So that whole thing about all those people on the other side of the wall, you know, I can get to Tijuana in 20 minutes from where I live. That was breaking my heart. So I said, what should I do? And the answer was, the Jewish Family Services has a really good section, a really good way of dealing with the migrants. And they have a whole place downtown where they bring them in. There's like 100 at a time. There's cots for people that have made it. It's like a big auditorium full of cots. And what we could do in terms of helping is two choices. One is you go there for meal times, you put on your hairnet, you make the sandwiches, you clean off the table, you serve them the meal, then you clean off the table again, you sweep the floor. That's one way, which I tried and I didn't like. And so I said, I can't do it that way. The other way is you drive the migrants to the bus station or to the airport, and then you park your car and you get them through TSA. You get them all the way to their gate. You stop on the way, maybe buy them waters and bananas, the whole family. You usher them to the gate and you wave goodbye. And all this, you can talk to them through Google Translate. I don't know Spanish. So that is kind of the activation of hope and desire, because it always wants to manifest through the living of your life. It always wants to be related to how you show up in the world. God, this sun is so bright. So I'm going to read a poem from my book, which is called There Are Burning Bushes Everywhere. This poem is called What I Want. I want my creations to be heart-seeking missiles that explode upon arrival into a million sparks of light. I want to be like a tree turning sunlight and air into food for the soul. I want to wake up feeling like the world couldn't make it without me. I want my stories to feel like a shower of rose petals to whomever is listening. I want to be unattached to the outcome of my work and unrelenting about its coming out. I want to write the book I'm hoping to find. I want to be like nature, unpredictable yet consistent, stable yet ever changing, safe to be with yet wild as a wolf. So that's it. Consider what your heart's desire. Trust that that is a good thing, what you're desiring. Because if you're in unity, you have a clear consciousness. You can trust what you desire. Take a look at it and see how that desire relates to who you are in the world and what is it trying to activate inside you. How is it trying to move you in the direction of other people so that you can be a force for good in the world? So that's how your desire or your hope becomes an active verb in the living of your life. That's what I have to say to y'all this morning. And I really love it that I can look out at all your faces and know that we have undone the damage that was done to many of us as religion was trying to be implanted into our minds and ourselves. And we've overcome many myths and are creating a life of high consciousness. So I hope I was useful to you this morning. And thanks for the invitation, because I love Unity Kitchener.